afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Old Trafford. Manchester United, of course, Norwich City's opponents this afternoon. A club where there's plenty of protest, and if reports to believe, some fans are going to miss the opening 17 minutes of this game in protest against the Glazer family and their owners. They, of course, come into this game on the back of a defeat to Everton as well. So it does feel like maybe this is potentially a good time for Norwich City to play Manchester United. Today, we will have the team news in a couple of minutes or so when it drops. I'm joined by Paddy Dowett, who's sat just literally to the left of me. So hopefully we can avoid some nice echoes and by muting at the right time. But Pad, I mean, as we look out across Old Trafford, it's a glorious pitch, glorious surface. So I turn to my right, I can see plenty of Norwich City fans already in that away end wearing yellow and green, which I'm sure is going to be the butt of a lot of jokes this afternoon. But it does... We might have lost Paddy there. I've just seen his internet come out, so I might have to fill. But plenty of Norwich fans filling up that away end, which is good to see. Expecting another full house here. It's certainly packed in and around the stadium, as it always is. We should have the team news in about a minute time or so. Paddy joins us again. Go on, Pad.
I was just going to say, that's what you get for trying to be clever and pan around so I can show all our viewers, the Norwich fans. I'll do that after I've stopped talking. Not that it would be a huge loss if I didn't really hear what I was going to say, but somebody behind me actually just said nice of the Norwich fans to come with their anti-Glazer colours, as we all know, green and yellow, I'm waiting for the Norwich chant. Can we have our colours back? Can't be too long before we hear that, surely.
No, you wouldn't think so. We should have the team for you. We do have the team for you here. It's unchanged from Norwich City this afternoon, from that team that beat Burnley 2-0 last Sunday, and probably as we expected, Gilmour and Porhetta returned to the bench for Norwich today. That's a bit of a fitness boost for them. Williams and Springett, of course, not on the bench. Williams ineligible. Tony Springett is actually, as I look down on the pitch at the moment, in conversation with some of Norwich City's backroom staff. So we maybe could have assumed this, but that means that Norwich City line up like this. They've got Tim Krul in goal, Byram, Hanley, Gibson and Ian Nulis, the back four. Norman and McLean the two. Dowell on the right, Rashica on the left, with Pierre Lees-Malou behind Timu Pukki. Their subs bench: Angus Gunn, Christoph Simon, Max Aarons, Billy Gilmour, Jacob Sorensen, Lucas Rupp, Christoph Solis, John Rowe and Przemysław Porhetta. Yeah. And I'll just look to get the Manchester United team for you as well. I'm sure
I can jump in there, Connor. I've got that.
On them. Do it.
Yeah, we'll just reel them off. De Gea, Lindelof, Maguire, Pogba, Ronaldo, Lingard, Bruno Fernandes, Dalot, Sancho, Alex Telles and Elanga. So my immediate thought looking at is that's top heavy with some serious attacking talent. Ronaldo, Lingard, Fernandes, Sancho, Elanga. Pogba has been known to, on his day, cause an attacking threat. So pretty clear where United are at today. They know they have to win this game if they're going to do anything in terms of that top four race, and also maybe in the bigger picture to get some of these fans back on side again, because it does feel that there's an air of mutiny around this place. Walking around and seeing the amount of people that are here, it does underline what a institution, bigger than a football club, this place is, because even like 2 hours before kickoff, tens and tens of thousands of people. So as Dean Smith said yesterday, irrespective of not being able to scale the heights that Sir Alex's teams did on the pitch at the moment, the expectation that they can get back there is still very clear and uppermost in a lot of those fans' minds, because many of them will have came up on a diet of Beckham, Giggs, Scholes, Keane, wonderful names, wonderful domination of English football. They're a long way from that now, but as Dean Smith said yesterday, look at the attacking players they've got. They've got a player who's won multiple Ballon d'Ors as the best player in the world, and ultimately, on their day, they're still a fearsome prospect as an attacking unit. So, yeah, could be a good time to play them, as Dean Smith hoped, but ultimately, Norwich will have to play, for me, as well as they played all season to get anything here tonight.
Yes, and even maybe in spite of the frustrations that fans are feeling and the woes of those in the home end, as you said, Pat, there's still real quality in there. You still travel to Old Trafford with your fingers crossed, hoping that maybe a Norwich City goalkeeper, Tim Krul, in today's instance, is going to have a wonderful game, that the woodwork is going to stand tall, and that they're going to get a little bit of luck, which maybe they're going to need. So it's quite incredible, actually, as I kind of cast my eyes out towards the pitch, and really there's plenty of, obviously, Man United fans in front of us, and the obvious name and shirt number that I can see pretty much across the whole of this stand that we're sat in is Stefan Ronaldo. So that just sums up what United fans feel towards him. I mean, I think it's quite obvious, Pat, that he isn't the player that maybe we saw at this place 10 years ago, a decade ago. How much is Grant Hanley and Ben Gibson going to relish that task of keeping him quiet? Because I think actually you look at the reverse fixture at Carrow Road, on the whole they probably did a pretty good job with that, albeit he won the penalty and scored the penalty that ultimately saw them leave Norfolk with 3 points. Yeah,
I think even the most ardent United follower, either at Carrow Road that night or watching remotely, would have been hard-pressed to argue that Norwich deserved something from that game. They didn't, and the difference was, albeit not the Superman act that we saw maybe in his pomp in Real Madrid, but was Cristiano Ronaldo. And it's pertinent that we talk about him, and you see, as you say, Connor, looking across this main stand here, and 7 Ronaldo is a very popular number at the club shop, and he is a bridge to the Ferguson years. You know, when Norwich, to put that in context, when Norwich beat them 2-0 in the Nigel Worthington era, when Dean Ashton and Leon McKenzie scored at Carrow Road, Ronaldo was part of that setup. So he goes as far back as that. And, they look at him and if you're a United fan, you probably do pine for those glory years. But he's a shadow of his former self. But he can, on his day, yes, still influence games and still drag this team up to a level that, they would maybe have too much for Norwich today. But time will tell. I mean, ultimately, it's about Norwich at this stage of the season. If they're going to do anything now, we've had some respite with the Brighton draw, which now looks a good point in the context of what they did against Burnley. And but if it's to be anything more than respite, if it is to be, my God, can this be possible? Then I think at the least they need to get a point from here today, because if they don't, they're already playing catch up and hoping for slip ups elsewhere. But if you can't take care of your own business, and as Dean Smith said, pre-Burnley, he told the players, win 2 of the next 3, 2 of the next 4, and the table can be a different look entirely. Thank you. So if that is the case, despite how tall an order it feels today, they do need to get some in here today, because, as we said, walking into the car, from the car, it feels like either a 1-0 Norwich or a 4-0 Man United. I don't think they'll be anywhere in between, and we all hope that it's the former rather than the latter. But if you can't play in this arena, I don't know where you can. And ultimately, for those who've been on this journey with Norwich, probably going back to the first tilt in the Premier League, they were denied this in the Project Restart era, full houses, certainly towards the end of that season. But if you can't play in front of 65, 70,000, then you don't really deserve to be pulling on the shirt at Premier League level. So you just hope that lifts them to find something quite special. And I think it will take that today, irrespective of how seemingly frustrated and angry the mood is around this place. It's still going to take, as I said at the start, Norwich's best performance of the season by some measure to get anything here today.
Yeah, it's about frustrating them, isn't it, I think, because this is clearly a crowd that has shown that it will turn if Norwich City can keep themselves in the game for long periods and then maybe look to nick it late on. It's kind of that ideal away performance that maybe we hope to see this afternoon. Pad, I mean, we've often seen Dean Smith this season, as a general rule of thumb, if Billy Gilmour has been fit and Billy Gilmour starts for Norwich City. That's not the case this afternoon. I think he's probably coming for a lot of criticism off the back of Norwich City winning a football match, because actually quite a few people have said that they seem to perform better when he's not in the 11, which seems very, very harsh on Billy Gilmour. It probably maybe says more about the expectation that surrounds him. I think that maybe annoys Norwich City fans more than Billy Gilmour himself. But are you surprised that Dean Smith hasn't opted to go back to that sort of 4-3-3, 3-man midfield that he has sort of favoured since he arrived at the club?
No. As we said, I think Dean Smith would have had to stay up here if he'd have put Billy Gilmour back in, because there'd have been lynch parties on the border of Norfolk if Billy Gilmour was back in the side today. Said it after the game, still feel that's an experiment that hasn't worked, and it's now best to park it, because ultimately I know there's been pieces post Burnley with and without him in the side and what the stats look like. I think that's a little bit one-dimensional to hang it all on Billy Gilmour. By no manner of means is it completely down to Billy Gilmour why Norwich are where they are in terms of their output. But by the same token, that was the best midfield offering I think I've seen for quite a while in terms of Norwich without the ball and with the ball, more importantly. The cohesion with Lise Malou and Dowell, the sort of freedom Rashica had, and more importantly, the support that Pukki was given and the type of service that he needs and that he thrives on. They were all facets we saw against Burnley, and I know, especially in light of what's happened with Sean Dyche, you have to caveat it with, well, it was Burnley, and Burnley were very open and certainly susceptible to transitions. And Dean Smith had spotted that pre-match and set about putting out a team and a tactical formation that absolutely exploited that. But I still think even that allowed, that was a far better Norwich performance with the ball from their midfield options than we've ever seen with Billy Gilmour in the side. And, as I say, for me, if Billy Gilmour had walked back into this side, then, it's the whole mantra. You don't change a winning side, irrespective of whether it's Burnley one week or Man United the next. And what message would that have sent to a Dowell? What message would that have sent to Elise Malou? Ultimately, in the here and now, not for me, Billy Gilmour, and certainly moving forward, because he won't be here. Fundamentally, he'll be back at Chelsea and probably out somewhere else on loan. So, let's just accept it isn't an experiment that's really come off. And if this is about, trying to take this as long as they can for the rest of the season, then for me, Billy Gilmour isn't part of that equation.
Yeah, I suppose the other talking point, really, although I know Dean Smith was very big on Sam Byram yesterday. I was speaking to Manchester United fans in the week who were talking to me about, or asking questions about Max Aarons and whether he'd start, and speaking about what a quality player he is. It was always interesting sometimes to dip out of the Norfolk and Norwich City bubble to get people's perceptions of it. But he is on the bench. That's probably a testament more to what Sam Byram is doing rather than what Max Aarons maybe isn't. Is that kind of a fair reflection of how you see that situation, Pat?
Well, it was me who put the question to Dean Smith, and it was very effusive. I mean, he said essentially when him and Shakespeare walked through the door and they looked at the playing staff, Sam Byram was a wow, what a good player he is moment. So that tells you how highly rated they think he is. The only question mark with him is the injuries, and more, is his body going to be robust enough to come through that? Because 22 months, 21 months of your professional career out on the sidelines injured, multiple surgeries, by his own admission, doubts whether he'd come back, whether he'd have to call time on his career. All of those elements were going to inevitably create a healthy degree of uncertainty, certainly at Premier League level, about whether he could be the player he was. Let's go back to his first season was that Premier League season, and he was probably heading to be Norwich's player of the season. He'd ousted Jamal Lewis at left back to underline his versatility, but right back is clearly where he would feel that is his main position. And as Dean Smith said, Max Aarons has now got a challenge, and he probably hasn't had that. And for a player of his age to have amassed 160 games, while that's a great testament to Max and his consistency and his level of performance, it probably also underlines he hasn't had that competition driving him on. And there's a broader point about whether Max has plateaued a little bit this season in terms of his own development. If he's got a Sam Byram pushing him, I don't think that necessarily would have been the case. So now, ultimately, if you're Dean Smith, if you had what he's now got a right back, two very viable options, if he had that across the team, I think you'd see the performances and, more importantly, the results would be far better than they have been, because ultimately it's that competition that drives individuals to produce, because they know if Sam Byram knows he drops his levels again today and on a personal level, irrespective of the result, but if he doesn't hit his strides, then Max Aarons will be probably expected to come back in for the next game. So I think ultimately, we won't prejudge where we are at this stage of the season and going into the summer, but it does feel like maybe it's Max moving on in the summer if the planets align in terms of tangible transfer interest and financials making sense for Norwich and for a buying club. And if that is to be the case, me personally, and I'm sure most Norwich fans, would you be unhappy if it was Sam Byram wearing the right back or donning the right back shirt come the start of next season? Personally, I don't think you'd have an issue with that, because I don't think that necessarily weakens them, and maybe in some regards they're probably even better, because I think defensively he has the edge over Max for me. And it's no coincidence that he's part of a back line now that's kept 2 clean sheets, which hitherto has been a very difficult thing for Norwich to do. So right call, and moving forward, great to see that level of competition. It's just a shame for me we don't have that replicated in the rest of the team, particularly in forward areas.
Absolutely. Finally then, Bad, how do you see this one going? Difficult after, like I say, it feels like it's probably going to be a tight Norwich win or a real thumping for Manchester United, and that response that they have that maybe we are expecting is shown. It's got the potential to be a great afternoon and potential to be a really difficult one as well, hasn't it? So it's got to have a strange game to look at and really be able to say with any degree of certainty what's going to happen.
Absolutely. But I just feel if you're those United players, they will know, irrespective of who's going to be the coach, what the ownership situation is. They will know when they step on this pitch today, given that, recent results, given it looks like the top four is slipping away from them, then if they don't produce, there's 70,000 will be on them, and will be not slow in telling them. And I think if you're a player in the red today, that's not something you want to have to experience. So I think they will dredge a performance, and sadly, I think with the quality they've got in attacking areas, they probably will have too much for Norwich. But I don't get the sense it's going to be a walkover, certainly. And many of the time I've sat here at Old Trafford, and Norwich have really had a chasing and been well off it and leaked too many goals. I don't feel we're going to have one of those today, famous last words, but I just think with the quality they've got and with the sense of frustration in this place, that those players will want to perform and prove that they are good players. And ultimately, if they were to win and turn it on today, that's probably more of a negative towards that group of players, that they can do it from 1 week to every other, but can they do it week in and week out? And it doesn't feel like they can, looking at it from afar. But on any given day, if they catch, then they can give any team trouble at this league, and particularly a team at the bottom of the table. So, if I had to step my nick out, 2-0, 3-1 United, I just feel it'd be beyond Norwich today. But it'd be great if Norwich could take it as deep as possible, and as Dean Smith said, exploit any frustration or simmering anger amongst this support to the club in general, but also to that playing group as well, who they see have got all this allure and big names on the world stage, but aren't performing as a collective. So Norwich need to really dig in, weather some early storms, I think, and if they come through that, who knows? But history tells you, I think they've won once here since '89. That was the Tete Topo goal. I know they've not inhabited the same league for all of that period, but it underlines, whether it's a United in their pomp or whether it's this United, that it's an incredibly difficult place to come. And as a result, I think it might be just beyond them today. But I'll kick that back to you, Connor. Give us your prediction.
Yeah, I'm the same, really. I mean, I'm kind of expecting a Manchester United response, and I think if that does arrive, you'd fear for Norwich. I mean, for all kind of the talk of Manchester United and the frustrations that the fans are feeling, the inconsistency of their performances, you just have to look down some of the names on the teams that we've read this afternoon, and there's still immense quality there. Although Dean Smith has won here earlier this season with Aston Villa, so let's hope that's a lucky omen. We'll just go through the teams again before we leave you. Norwich City unchanged. Tim Krul in goal. Byram, Gibson, Hanley, and the new list at the back four. Norman and McLean in the midfield two. Rashica on the right. Kieran Dowell on the left, with Pierre Lace-Malou behind Timu Pukki. The subs bench: Angus Gunn, Max Aarons, Christoph Zimmermann, Lucas Rook, Billy Gilmour, Shemiswar Poheta, Christos Solis, Jacob Sorensen, and John Rowe. Manchester United have David De Gea in goal. Dalot, Lindelof, and Maguire and Telles in their back four. Lingard, Fernandes, Sancho, Ronaldo, Alanga, and Pogba is their team. Their bench: Henderson, Bailly, Jones, Mata, Rashford, Wan-Bissaka, Matic, Hannibal, and Garnacho as well. So there you go. That's the teams from Old Trafford. It's going to be a really interesting afternoon here for Norwich City and for Manchester United. Let's see what we get. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.